You wake up tired, not because your body didn't sleep, but because your mind never truly stopped running. Even in silence, there's noise, a constant mental negotiation, a war between who you are and who you think you need to become before your life is finally allowed to begin. You tell yourself, once I become disciplined, then I'll be confident. Once I fix my habits, then I'll deserve peace. Once I finally get my life together, then I'll be enough. But deep down, there's another truth hiding underneath all of that self-improvement. You are exhausted from carrying a version of yourself that was built for survival, not for living. And that's the paradox. The habits that once protected you, the overthinking, the emotional numbness, the endless scrolling, the procrastination, the constant need for motivation, they once helped you escape pain. But now, they are the very things quietly destroying your future. Because most people think transformation is about becoming someone new. It's not. Real transformation is about remembering who you were before fear taught you to abandon yourself. And if you do one thing consistently for 21 days, not perfectly, not obsessively, but honestly, your life can begin to change in ways that feel almost terrifying. Not because success is scary, but because healing forces you to meet the version of yourself you've been avoiding for years. The version beneath the distractions, the version beneath the performance, the version that still believes rest must be earned. What you need is not another productivity hack. You need interruption, an interruption of the unconscious patterns running your life. Psychologists call this automaticity. Nearly half of human behavior operates on subconscious loops, controlled by the brain's basal ganglia. Your habits become neurological shortcuts, which means the life you're living right now is not entirely a series of conscious decisions. It is memory repeating itself. Your nervous system memorized stress, your brain memorized avoidance, your identity memorized limitation, and eventually, you stopped questioning it. This is why change feels so hard, because you are not fighting laziness, you are fighting familiarity. The human brain is deeply attached to what is predictable, even when that predictability is painful. Neuroscientists refer to this as the default mode network, the mental state your brain returns to when left unchecked. For some people, that default becomes self-criticism. For others, emotional escape. For others, constant stimulation. And over time, your inner world becomes like a room with no windows. You stop imagining a different life because your mind has adapted to emotional survival. This is also connected to something called learned helplessness. When a person experiences repeated disappointment, failure, criticism, or emotional invalidation, the nervous system eventually stops trying, not because the person is weak, but because the brain interprets effort as danger. So you delay, you avoid, you distract yourself, not because you don't care about your future, but because part of you no longer believes change is safe. And that is why these 21 days matter. Not because 21 days magically fixes your life, but because repetition begins to challenge identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, your brain collects evidence that you are no longer trapped in the old story. That is how transformation begins. Quietly, almost invisibly, like roots growing underneath frozen ground. But there is an emotional cost to the way you've been living, and most people never speak about it. The cost of constantly abandoning yourself is invisible grief. You grieve the person you could have become, the relationships you sabotaged because you feared vulnerability, the opportunities you delayed because you feared failure, the years spent waiting to feel ready. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That's what many people call destiny, patterns they never questioned. You become hyper-independent because needing people once felt unsafe. You become emotionally unavailable because vulnerability once led to pain. You become addicted to achievement because validation became your substitute for love. And eventually, you lose connection with your authentic self, not dramatically, quietly, through daily self-betrayal. This is the hidden tragedy of modern life. People are dying psychologically while appearing functional externally. They smile while disconnected. They achieve while emotionally starving. They stay busy because silence forces them to confront themselves. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described this as the sickness unto death, the despair of not becoming oneself. And maybe that's what you've been feeling. Not laziness, not lack of ambition, but disconnection. Because when a person lives too long in survival mode, They stop asking, "What do I truly want?" and start asking, "What will keep me emotionally safe?" So they settle, they shrink, they postpone life. You might notice this in yourself. You might constantly consume content instead of creating. You might avoid difficult conversations until relationships quietly decay. You might feel guilty while resting. You might start projects with excitement and abandon them days later. You might fear commitment because consistency feels emotionally exposing. You might overthink every decision because mistakes feel tied to your worth. You might become productive for everyone except yourself. These are not personality flaws. They are coping strategies, adaptations. Your nervous system learned to prioritize protection over expansion, and healing begins the moment you stop shaming yourself for surviving, because self-hatred cannot heal self-abandonment. This is why the most important part of these 21 days is not discipline. It is witnessing. Watching your patterns without lying to yourself, seeing how often you escape discomfort, seeing how often you betray your own boundaries, seeing how often you wait for motivation instead of practicing devotion. Most people are trying to change behavior without understanding the pain underneath the behavior. But behavior is a symptom. The real question is, what emotional state are you trying to avoid? Loneliness? Failure? Stillness? Rejection? Your own thoughts? Because once you identify the pattern, you stop becoming controlled by it. And slowly, something incredible happens. You begin rebuilding trust with yourself, not through intensity, but through consistency. For 21 days, wake up and keep one promise. Just one. Maybe it's journaling for 10 minutes. Maybe it's exercising. Maybe it's reading instead of scrolling. Maybe it's sitting in silence without distracting yourself. The action matters less than the relationship you build with yourself through the action, because every repeated act of self-respect weakens the identity built around helplessness. This is what psychologists call neuroplasticity. The brain is not fixed. Your emotional patterns are not permanent. Your identity is not a life sentence. With repetition, the brain literally rewires itself. New neural pathways form. Old emotional associations weaken. Your nervous system slowly learns, I am safe to change. But healing is not glamorous. Healing is grieving the years you spent disconnected from yourself. Healing is learning softness after years of emotional armor. Healing is choosing presence over escape. Healing is sitting with discomfort long enough to realize it won't destroy you. And perhaps the most beautiful part of healing is this. You stop trying to become impressive and start trying to become real. You no longer chase worth. You embody it. You no longer need constant validation because your relationship with yourself becomes stable. And one day, without realizing exactly when it happened, you wake up lighter, not because life became perfect, but because you are no longer fighting yourself every day. That is the true power of 21 days, not motivation, momentum, not becoming someone else, coming home to yourself. The poet Rumi once wrote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Maybe your pain was never proof that you were broken. Maybe it was proof that a deeper version of you was trying to emerge. So if you begin these 21 days, begin gently, not with punishment, not with obsession, not with the desperate need to reinvent your entire life overnight. Begin with respect, because the goal is not to fix yourself. You are never a machine. The goal is to become whole again. And if this video spoke to something you've been carrying silently, share it with someone who's struggling to believe change is possible. And remember, your future is not created by one dramatic moment. It is created by the small daily decisions that teach your mind, your body, and your soul that you are finally ready to stop surviving and start living.